Good morning, everybody. I do hope you are all safe and sound. Welcome to Ask the Expert, a daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. Ask any question in the comment section or use the hashtag QBATE, that's QBATE on Twitter, to get some questions over to us. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts like myself are on hand 24/7. QuickBooks also has a dedicated COVID-19 information site. Just go to the QuickBooks website, scroll down a little bit, and tick the big Learn More button under the support for your local business during COVID-19. My name is Aaron Patrick, and it's a pleasure to be with you one more time. I'm a chartered accountant and QuickBooks certified trainer, so don't be afraid to ask any of those QuickBooks technical questions. I own a state-of-the-art accounting practice called Boffix, which uses cloud technology to make sure our businesses have information at their fingertips. So if you have any questions regarding accounting advice, bookkeeping services, or anything like that, please do get in touch. Also, recently I started a brand new QuickBooks focused vlogcast with Ash, who's one of my co-hosts, and we go on a bi-weekly schedule at Tuesday at 4 p.m. with our next episode going live 23rd of June, so hope to see you there. Go into Facebook, have a look for QuickBooks Live, and you'll find our page. Okay, enough about me, and let's get on with today's session. As always, this session is all about your burning questions. So if you have a question, then please use any of the social channels to get in touch. So while we wait for the first of the questions to arrive, let's think about some recent issues with our clients have been facing. Tomorrow, I'll be co-hosting Intuit QuickBooks webinar on flexible furlough. So I thought it'd be a good one to talk about flexible furlough in a little bit more detail. Ariana did a great job on Friday explaining this, but for anyone who missed that session or when we got the opportunity to talk about it in a more practical sense, I thought now would be a good time to bring it in. So first of all, let's have a quick recap of what happened. So some big changes have been announced. Most importantly, during June and July, the scheme will remain at no change, so 80% of salary for employees. However, from the 1st of July, the government has now introduced the concept of flexible furlough, meaning that furloughed staff will be able to work for employees on a part-time from this date. And the remainder of that time they are not working, they can continue to be furloughed under the furlough scheme. Crucially, to the benefit of the job retention scheme in the future, staff must have been furloughed already by the June the 10th, so that date's already passed, as no new entrants to the scheme will be permitted after the 30th of June. And if you think about the current rules, they needed to have been in by that 10th of June. That's why that 10th of June was so important. They need to be in by that time to be able to qualify for the scheme. From the 1st of August, the government taxpayer will continue to pick up the 80% tab, but employees will need to pick up national insurance and pension contributions from their own budget. So make sure you've got that included in your budgets. From the 1st of September, though, the government taxpayer will cover 70% of salary, and employers will be required to contribute 10% of that figure. So the employee will still receive 80, but you'll receive 70 back, and then you've got to make up that 10%. And from the 1st of October, it's cut down a little bit more, so it will go down to 60% of salary with a cap of £1,875, with the employees contribute 20% of that cap. Okay then, so with all these changes going forward, planning is going to be so critical going forward. Flexible furlough is a massive advantage, but we'll need to be careful about how we implement it to make sure it doesn't cripple a small business. For the big corporations, they have sophisticated systems so they can understand what the effect of bringing people back on a shift basis or whatever that's going to be. But for our community, we need to make sure that we've got everything in hand so that we can understand what the effect's going to be to our businesses, especially from today. As more restrictions are going to be lifted, more businesses are going to start opening their doors. Business owners are going to have to juggle staff members accordingly so that they can offer services which might be a reduced basis to normal operations. So you think about it, even the smallest of small companies and smallest small businesses, they're going to have to think about the impact of bringing new staff members back in or operating on a reduced time. So we've got to plan ahead. We've got to understand exactly what the effect of bringing people back on a reduced basis is going to do for our business. Business are going to have to juggle those staff members. This is going to be tricky. From a HR point of view, you're going to make sure all your eggs are in the right basket. You've got to make sure all your contracts are right. We've got our friends, our trusted business partners is Merle. She's one of the ASCII experts at Ferilio. Do make sure you reach out to them if you have any difficulties or any problems, because this is what this is going to be all about. It's about making sure that you can bring those staff members back on a more flexible basis. So you want to make sure that you've got everything in line, that you're not holding or hampering yourself from that point of view. From a practical side of things, you really need to be plan ahead and seriously consider a cash flow forecast. Good news is that QuickBooks now offer a cash flow planner built directly into the product. I did a video of it this weekend to talk about how to use that, and especially in relation to flexible furlough. And we'll share this accordingly. But in a nutshell, it's a really simple setup, which anyone can do. So really, it's about looking at the practical elements of it, looking at what QuickBooks can bring to the table. One of the things you need to make sure is that you've got to make sure your bank is connected, as this is a requirement for the cash flow product. What the cash flow product will look at what has happened in the past and try and predict what's going to happen in the future. It gives you a nice 90-day span where you can understand how your cash is going to go up and down and fluctuate during that time. It's going to take what's called predicted events, which are basically transactions that it's looked at and predicted going forward, and should be able to kind of look at your standard outgoings and your standard incomings. And from there, it's going to be able to predict roughly whereabouts you're going to go. And that's going to give you a great insight, a great starting point where you can start thinking about what's going on. You then need to take that information and understand and make sure and do a little bit of an audit to make sure everything's been included. Rent, heat, light, them sort of expenses. Make sure they are being shown in those predicted transactions, and make sure you're showing a true reflection of what your cash flow is going to be. Then it gives you a chance to start looking at adding salary and other new expenses into the fold. These transactions are called planned events within a cash book, a cash flow product. So these planned events are actually a place where they only live inside the cash flow area. So you're not going to affect VAT returns or anything like that. That gives you the opportunity to go in and start almost having a play of what's going to happen. You can start putting scenarios in place. Maybe if you bring this employee back, how is that going to affect your cash flow? If you bring this employee on a full-time basis, what's going to happen? If you bring it on a part-time basis, what's going to happen? And you're going to see the net result of how that cash flow is going to affect. And it's going to give you those opportunities to make those decisions. You're then going to understand that for me to bring this employee back, I need to make sure I'm generating X amount of income. I need to make sure I'm bringing this in. And with you already knowing the reduced capacity that you're going to be working at, you can understand how realistic that target's going to be. So use this chance to plan for a different eventuality. See the impact of bringing staff members and how this will affect businesses from a cash flow point of view. Don't forget also to recognize those changes I spoke about at the beginning of this show. So make sure you're understanding that from the 1st of July, things are going to change in terms of how much income you're going to get back from those employees that are still on furloughed at this point in time. So do make sure that you've covered that. Do make sure you brought that into play when it comes to looking at your cash flow. I go into this in a lot more detail in this video, so do give a chance to have a watch and don't be afraid to ask any questions if you do that. We'll make sure there's a link below for that. We're all starting to bring our businesses back to a quote-unquote new normal, but we need to be careful and plan accordingly for a staged reopening. And this is where planning and budgeting and cash flow is going to be so key to us at this point in time. Good luck with everyone opening again today. And if you need any help, don't forget the Intuit COVID-19 resources, the Facebook group, and also us at Bofix are always here to help. So now on to your burning questions. We've had a couple of questions come in already. First of all, we've got Chris from Facebook live feed. I seem to have a problem when I send my invoice. It's not showing in my email, so I can't check before I click send. This has only started happening over the last 2 to 3 weeks. That's a really strange one there, Chris. So just to give context of what Chris is bringing or talking about here, Facebook QuickBooks has this really great feature for an audit trail within QuickBooks. What it does is it gets the opportunity where you can create the invoice in the product itself. You can press send, and then when you press send via QuickBooks, it's going to give you the opportunity to understand when that invoice has been sent. Furthermore, you even get the opportunity to see when that invoice has been opened the other end, so when the customer has interacted with that invoice. Now, what I would say from that point of view, what you're having there, Chris, is do make sure there's the simple things are being looked at first. So do make sure that email's correct. Sometimes you have it where you think that you're bringing forward the correct email, but all it takes is you to accidentally put another comma in or whatever it's going to be, and that email then becomes invalid. So just do those simple sense checks. I'm sure that's not the issue, but do just make sure you've covered those first. After that, this is definitely something you need to talk to one of our care team about. Now, there's various ways in which you can get in contact with them. Personally, what I would do in a time like this is I would use the chat box feature. So if you go to the help section in the top right-hand corner, say contact us, you're going to have the opportunity to open up a chat box there, and you'll be able to talk to them exactly. The best thing about that feature is they can actually log in, they can see what you can see, and they can kind of understand exactly what you're going through. As soon as they've figured out what that problem is, they'll be able to get you sorted straight away. Hopefully that gets you sorted. Chantel from Facebook Live Feed. If I have a receipt and only some of the businesses, is there a way to change it when snapping the receipt? Sorry, I misread that one. Chantel from Facebook Live, just read that one again. If I receipt and only some of it is business related, is there a way to change it when snapping the receipt? Well, that's a great question. So basically what this is all about is the new feature in QuickBooks where you can snap the receipt as soon as you get it. So the idea is that as soon as you've incurred an expense, or maybe you've gone out on a business expense, you've gone to, maybe entertaining, or you've gone for travel or whatever it's going to be, and you're literally out and about, you have the ability to grab your phone, go into the QuickBooks app and take a photo of that receipt. What's going to happen then is QuickBooks is then going to cleverly, almost like witchcraft, it's going to read that information for you, so you don't have to go through typing the date, the amount, and where you got this from. Now, what the question is talking about here from Chantel is talking about, well, if that's going to be asking me that, or going to take that information for me, how does it know, or how can you tell it that some of it might be business related? Well, that's all about the next step. So as soon as you take that photo, it's going to store that in a section within the banking area called receipts. And from there, you're going to have a chance to review all the transactions that basically you've taken a photo of and you've imported into QuickBooks. Before you actually put that into QuickBooks officially, and before it's actually imported directly in, you have an opportunity to review that transaction, to go through it, have a look and see, is it looking at the right VAT? Is it looking at everything that should be related to it? And at that point as well, you can choose where it's going to be posted to. So is it going to be business related, as in entertainment, or is it going to be travel? Or in your question, is some of it's going to be related to personal? If you've got a mixture of it, there's an opportunity to split the transaction. So you could say that £100 of it is for entertainment, £20 of it is for personal, or whatever those are going to be. And if you are posting to personal, you want to be posting to your drawings or director's loan account, and make sure there's no VAT involved. And as soon as you've got that in, as soon as you press publish from there, it's going to post the relevant areas to the relevant sections. So if you have got £100 for business and £20 for personal, it's going to put that split in for you. So that's going to be the quickest and easiest way. And the fact you're using that receipt capture speeds up that process for you. Because first of all, you're not going to forget about it because you've already taken it. It's already sat there. And then when it goes in through the system and the way it goes in, you then have the opportunity to define exactly what it is. And it's clever enough as well to start learning these things as well. So if you're constantly doing things like that, you'll have the opportunity to make sure that QuickBooks understands that going forward. Okay, Reese from Facebook Messenger asks, does getting a bounce back loan stop any additional support, such as universal credit and self-employed income support scheme, if I qualify? It's a really good question there, Reese. And that's something that businesses are starting to really have to consider going forward. So with a bounce back loan itself, it is a separate entity in its right. Remember, it is a loan. It's all about your credit rating. It's all about how much you as a business or an individual can afford to borrow so that you can pay back later. So it's not classed as income. It's not classed as like the support grant or anything like that. So it doesn't hamper you in terms of what's happening there. You should consider yourself, though, the bounce back loan to be a separate element. You should be able to consider from there, is it something you can affordably repay back, and is the amount that you're taking going to be enough? Those sort of questions, everything else, are separate in terms of, again, cash flow. It's all about making sure you've got enough cash to survive. So in your scenario here, looking at considering the bounce back loan is something you just need to make sure makes a viable business sense. Have you got enough in terms of cash to be able to afford to repay it after the first 12 months? Have you got ways in which you can actually generate income to support that repayment in the next 12 months? Those are the sort of questions you need to have a look at and start thinking about going forward. And then basically, once you've got those down, then it's about consideration how much you can take. So remember, the rules are in place and how much you are allowed to borrow. But then you've got to understand how much you're going to need and for how long is it going to be that you're going to be affected for. Once you've got those sort of questions in mind, then you can apply for the scheme. Once you've applied for the scheme, it's completely, like I said before, it's completely separate to the same ideas that HMRC are going to, or the same ways in which HMRC are going to evaluate you in terms of your self-employed support scheme and universal credit. Those things are linked, so they will be interjected and together. So when you're looking at those sort of things, they'll be in their own little pot, and universal credit will consider how much support you've had from the government and that sort of thing. But when it comes to the bounce back loan, it is literally a loan. So it's all about you're borrowing some money, you're going to pay it back. So it has no effect on the universal credit. So if it is something your business needs, please do consider looking at it. Make sure you make the most of that bounce back loan while it's around and while it's still available. Carissa from Facebook Messenger says, we get most of the clients during summer as we're seasonal outdoor events company. How do I predict cash flow with the lack of data since we haven't had any work due to the current climate? And that's a really, really good question. So what we're talking about here is the fact that when you're predicting cash flow and you're looking at how your business is going to survive, and you're looking, and just take COVID-19 completely out of it, in any cash flow forecast, in any way of looking at cash flow, you're going to have to start thinking of predictability. So you can only predict based on what you know and what your gut feeling is and what you understand from previous data and what you understand from trends and everything like that. And seasonality, like Carissa is saying here, is a huge part of that. So when you start thinking about your cash flow projections and you start thinking about how I'm going to do this time next year and things like that, the only way you can successfully predict that is by thinking about how seasonality, how events, how the fact that you might need to grow your business and bring on more staff, how those events are going to affect your business in terms of cash flow. And what Carissa's saying here is the problem that they may have is that we're in unprecedented times. Every single one of our businesses at the moment have no idea how this is going to come back to normal. We don't know what's going to affect us. We're all pretty much in the same boat where it comes to predicting our cash flow and understanding it. The only thing we can do at this point is to look at the facts that we've got. If you don't have the facts of your seasonal outdoor events and how that's going to affect, and you don't have those facts to hand, then you're just going to have to make a really good estimate. And the best thing to do is be prudent about it. So what I mean by being prudent is going, well, let's think about the worst case scenario for my income. Let's look at my worst case scenario for my expenses. If your business can sustain those elements, then everything else is just a Brucey bonus at that point. So what you've got to consider is how much you can bring in, or what's your maximum amount of income that you need to bring in to be able to keep to sustainability and be able to get to that break-even point, as we talk about in cash flow forecasting. So that's where the tools that you've got are going to give you that opportunity. You can bring in scenarios. You can use a cash flow planner in QuickBooks. You can think about, well, if I add this scenario in and I add that scenario in. You can use the budgeting tools in QuickBooks to go, well, I expect to get this amount of income. I expect to get that. And then hopefully then you can find what your base level needs to be. Other things you can do as well with your scenario is don't be afraid to kind of reach out to other community members. Use our Facebook page. We've got an opportunity there where you might find a similar sort of business who wouldn't mind giving you that little bit of advice. Because at the end of the day, we've all become a community at the moment. We're all working and helping each other out. Gone are the days at the moment where we're so worried about our own data and our own thing because we're trying to keep everything and we're worried about rivals and everything else. Now's a time where a lot of people are helping each other out. A lot of businesses are doing what they can to help one another. So don't be afraid to ask for that information, or at least ask someone who can give you some guidance in that particular area. You may find a rival who not in your local area, but might be in a different part of the UK, and they may be able to give you that information. So reach out, talk to people, make connections. They will, they'll be able to help you. And at some point, you might be able to help them out. You might be able to give them some advice or let them, help out on or whatever it's going to be. So these connections are really important at this point in time. So I do think for you, reach out, find someone who can, give you that advice, find someone who can help you. And, even if you can't find a rival, there's plenty of resources out there that can give you kind of a bit of an indication. So hopefully you can find someone who's going to help you on your cause. We've got a Twitter DM coming in. Hello, what are the things I need to think about before applying for universal credit? Is there any hidden costs when I do I have to repay? I was hoping I wouldn't need to apply for UniCredit, but it looks like I will have to for now. Well, apologies, and sorry you're in a situation where you've got to kind of go down that route. But basically for universal credit, there's no hidden cost as such, so there's no kind of charges or anything. But the universal credit system is a really complex area. So they're going to look into a lot of things in terms of your personal income, because it's all based on your personal incomes, and it's not really to do with your business as such as what you can bring out of a business. When it comes to universal credit, though, they're going to look at all these criteria. They're going to basically assess you on every bit of income that you've got in, every bit of savings you've got, and then they're going to make a decision from that and make a decision of how much universal credit is going to be applicable to you. Now, once they've made that decision, that's the amount that they're going to pay you. If though there's been any, calculation errors, or there's something that may not have been disclosed, or whatever the reason's going to be, that's the only time that there could be any clawback. So all you need to do is make sure, from your point of view, you're upfront about absolutely everything that's going through your bank and how much you've got. When you're upfront with them, you tell them all the information, you give them the whole story. They will then be able to make a decision, and then there'll be no clawbacks. There'll be nothing coming backwards or going to adversely affect you going forward. Good luck with it. I hope it goes well. Christina from Facebook Live feed. Hi, Aaron. I've heard that HMRC have started their intention to audit all coronavirus job retention scheme claims at some point over the next 6 years. If we get audited, can the information be readily downloaded from QuickBooks, or should I be keeping aside everything, letters of furlough confirmation, etc.? Any tips would be appreciated. Great question there from Christina. So basically from the point of view of what we've been told is that, yes, you can imagine that the furlough scheme itself, it was built up overnight pretty much, and lots of the claims and everything, there was no audit trail, or there was no testing or looking into any detail as such. So HMRC's approach has been they're going to pay it out as much as they can now, and then any kind of auditing or anything like that is all going to be done later. With that in mind, you as a business owner do need to have that information saved. So QuickBooks is great because if you are using the payroll solution in there, then that's going to be an update of your data. But you also have the opportunity to upload other things. So you're going to want to be making sure your contracts are in there. You're going to want to make sure you've got access to emails or anything or correspondence you've had with your staff. Those are the sort of things that we want to just make sure we've got there. And the same rules apply to any piece of data from HMRC. They're going to have the opportunity to go back multiple years. So you're going to want to save that information in a safe place. But what I would do as a business owner, and what I am doing as a business owner, should I say, is if I was going to be having a staff on furlough, I would want to put that all into one area. I'd want the correspondence I had with them. I want to talk about, when I asked them to go on to the leave and when I asked them to come back. And if I am using the flexible furlough, I'm going to want to have that information there as well, so I can understand the shift patterns and everything else. So that if HMRC was to audit me, and if HMRC was to look at my kind of claim that I made, I've got the information to back that up. When it comes to the payroll and everything else, all that information is already in QuickBooks or whatever software you're using, but it doesn't harm you just to take maybe a PDF copy of that as well, just so you've got it all in one place, all on one file, so you can kind of put that together with your claim. Every claim we made as Bofix, we always made sure we had a little pack together that was kind of understanding everything that we claimed for and what it was there. And that pack's effectively going to be, if any of our clients were audited, that's going to be the thing we hand over and we pass it there. And I think businesses just need to make sure they've got the same and have everything in place. Great question there. Jennifer from Twitter says, I got refused a business credit card from my limited company, even though I got a positive balance sheet on year. What would be the best way to improve my credit score? Well, as a limited company, you've got to remember that you are a separate legal entity. So it's just like our own personal credit scores and everything else. It's all going to be affected by what we do well. So if we do something well, we're going to be rewarded with a nice credit score. So something as simple as taking out a mobile phone contract. As long as you keep paying that mobile phone contract, as long as you keep going forward and you don't go behind or anything like that, you're going to start improving your credit history going forward. Like personally as well, it's all about those little tricks where you can get those prepaid credit cards and prepaid debit cards and things like that. They improve your credit score because you're getting that opportunity to show that you can pay. Your limited company would have started at zero. So you need to start building that up, building that up, and building that up. So taking out phone contracts in the business name, taking out Revolut cards and things like that that are useful to you are going to slowly and surely incrementally increase that credit score. The fact that you've had a knockback could also be the fact that think of the position we're in at this moment in time. There is so much uncertainty with banks at the moment. They're very reluctant to be able to lend on any terms if it's not inside the COVID-19 supported schemes. So at the moment, they're cutting back. They've got to put resources into bounce back loans and everything else. So I would really just think of it as a point of view where it could well be down to the fact that it's just a timing issue more than anything else. Also, you have the opportunity to look at your credit score if you need to. So if you need to go and go to Experian or whatever it's going to be, have a look at that. That can give you some real good insights. It could just be something as simple as your address not matching, or it could be something as simple as the fact that, from Company's House is selling a different details to what you put to on the application form. So you have tools, and just like you do personally, have been able to look at what your limited company's business or limited company's credit score is going to be. So you're going to have the opportunity to have a look and deep dive into that. And once you have those reports, just have a look at the information it's given you. Make sure your dates and your addresses and everything else are up to date. And then think about maybe going forward an application when all this has died down and everything else. But in the meantime, do what you would do normally in terms of making sure everything's paid off and everything that doesn't adversely affect your credit rating. Okay, we've got time for one more question before we're at the end of this one. So with the Kirsty from YouTube Live says, with the furlough scheme, can we bring back people to work and still furlough others so we can see how opening back up goes? And yeah, exactly. That's exactly what the flexible furlough scheme is all about. We're in such unprecedented, uncertain times that we need to be able to think about how what the effect of bringing people back. We're having businesses like hairdressers who are not going to be able to open at their normal capacity. They're going to have to open up in opportunities where they can bring only a couple of people in at a time, no waiting around. It's going to be strict in terms of bookings and things like that. So when it comes to a hairdresser, they're going to have to think about how they're going to bring the information in, what sort of, or their employees in. They're going to have to think about how that's going to affect them. They're going to have to understand exactly what the amount of money is going to need for them to support their staff as they start bringing them back. So this is where the flexible furlough is all about helping the small business be able to get back on their feet and a staged response. So they don't have to just decide tomorrow, let's bring all our staff back. They can start thinking about, well, what if we bring one back here and one back then? We try and bring them back, because also there's got to be training as well. So you've got to implement that into it. And that's it. That's everything that I've got time for today. So what I'm going to do now is go through the last bits. So remember, any questions, get in touch with the QuickBooks support team on Facebook or myself at Boffix themselves. So don't forget, you can go over to our website, www.boffix.com, and have a look there. hello@boffix.com if you've got any questions you need to answer or you want to go through any more details that I've gone through today. Don't forget that video I was talking about as well. So we'll make sure that gets circulated so you can see how flexible furlough and the cash flow can all be integrated within QuickBooks and help you go forward. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow, though, we've got a really exciting one. Dominic Hallis, Executive Director of the Coalition for a Digital Economy Codec, representing startup and scale-up tech companies in public policy debates in the UK. If you remember from last time, it was really engaging, some really good information coming from Dominic. So do make sure you get yourself involved tomorrow. A reminder that if you need any more advice, though, join the QuickBooks Intuit Join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts like myself are on hand 24/7. Good luck to anyone who is going live and coming and opening their stores today. Hopefully it goes all right, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay safe, everyone. Bye for now.